Hello, everyone. My name is Phil, and I'm a doctor who loves to play board games. Today, I'm going to review Wondrous Creatures. This game has been on my watch list for quite a while, and I was so excited to find out that my local library picked up a copy. I've played this a few times now, and I know friends who have copies, and so I'll definitely be able to play it more. But here are my thoughts on the game, which are including the more interesting parts of the game that really spoke to me, some game comparisons, a peer review, and some thoughts on the solo mode, finally wrapping up with my rating and thoughts. First, in this game, you are a creature enthusiast aiming to build the most spectacular reserve of wondrous creatures. This game features a big deck of individualized cards of creatures with all sorts of abilities, either with one off types of abilities, continuous ones, or even ones that activate when you take workers off of the worker placement board. So, speaking of which, you have a worker placement aspect where you collect resources or cards based on the locations adjacent to where your worker is placed. Finally, there is a race aspect to achieving certain goals before anyone else, typically in collecting cards with certain icons on them, so icon collection. But there are other ways to score objectives too. And each time you achieve one, a trophy is taken off of the board. And once those run out, the end game is triggered. I should also mention that the worker placement board is modular. So during the game, where you typically start with a static preset board. As you place workers and recall them, additional tiles will be placed onto different areas of the board of your choosing, creating potential locations of combos to collect even more resources, more of the same or differing resources or cards, or as well as special actions that are depicted on these tiles as well if you spend nets, which are another type of resource in this game. As for game comparisons, note that this is, of course, based off of games I've already played, and so this list is not all inclusive. But the individualized cards, the tableau building, icon set collection, this is all very reminiscent of very popular games such as Ark Nova, Terraforming Mars, Wingspan, etc. In this game, as in Terraforming Mars, I think many of the cards might have a one time effect, but a lot of them can have a continuous benefit, activate at certain times during the game, or have end game objectives or points available for what you try to accomplish during the game. The worker placement aspect reminds me of Plantanubo. It's, I think, one of the closer comparisons to me. It's not a perfect comparison, but the similarities lie in the modularity of where your worker goes and what things you get to activate. In this game, like I've mentioned before, it starts off very static, where the resources are pre-printed on the board and the spaces that you can go on, but you can spend extra resources to nudge your worker in a certain alignment to get a certain combination of resources, and you get to build out the additional tiles on the board to gain different combinations of resources and or cards. And then Plantanubo, the actions are widely modular, and you place your worker in between two of them, and so you'll always have a combination of two different actions to choose from during the game as well as from game to game. And so that kind of modularity in what your workers can, where they can go and what you can do, is somewhat reminiscent to me in this game as well. Finally, there's also an element of player asymmetry, where you play as a certain character in Wondrous Creatures, gives you a certain power that you get to unlock later during the game. Many games have this mechanism of having like a faction or a character that provides you asymmetry or an asymmetric benefit, but the one that gives you an asymmetric power that you unlock during the gameplay is very reminiscent to me of Sweetlands or Age of Innovation too. For my peer review, after compiling a bunch of comments from people on Board Game Geek, both positive and negative, here's what I found out about what people thought about this game. Many people praise the game not only for its smooth gameplay, the engine building, but they also praise it for the art, the components, like the little magnetic captain meeple that you put on your worker to represent your character. The rulebook has also been praised as well. People really enjoy the quick turns, the quick, snappy experiences there, and how familiar a lot of the mechanisms are, especially if you've enjoyed some of the games I compared this one to. One divisive aspect of this game, though, is its length. Some feel it plays quick enough, but others feel like it's a little too long for what this game is trying to accomplish or for its complexity, which is about a medium, 3 out of 5 on the complexity scale on Board Game Geek. Some people also had some issues with the cards, mostly in terms of having to search through the deck for the right cards with the right abilities or icons and having them be cycled through the market a little too quickly too, especially at higher player counts. Sometimes they can be swept off into the discard pile long before you have a chance to try to draft them, and so there is quite an element of luck involved there too. My initial review of this game after a few plays is a solid 8.0 out of 10. It For my criteria, there's a lot of 4s out of 5s across the board. I think this game is intuitive to learn, it's fun to play, and thematic enough for what it's trying to convey. Bringing the solo perspective to the game as well, you do have an automa opponent, which is based off of a deck of cards that basically gives the opponent cards from the market or different resources or and places workers onto the board to block you in certain ways. And the score can vary based off of its difficulty as well. Uh, it's racing towards objectives and claiming those objective points before you do, and trophies as well. And so there is a range of difficulties. I did play it at its hardest difficulty, and I was about 15 points or so from beating it. So I will say that it felt like a good challenge. There are different little tweaks and scenarios that you can attach to make it even more difficult on top of it, although it's not recommended to go, too crazy on the difficulty. But in any case, both with the solo and multiplayer experience, I wouldn't say it's a more strategic game like Age of Innovation or Terra Mystica or even Arc Nova. Based on my experience, I do agree that there is an element of luck when it comes to the cards. And back to like one of my games with the hardest Automa opponent, if I had just one or two certain types of cards that were offered to me earlier in the game, I probably would have a score closer to it. And I felt like I did everything that I could. I was as efficient as possible, but I just did not have the right cards at the right time to get certain objectives quicker. And so I feel like it's a somewhat, tactical game. Well, there is some strategy here as well. As for play length, I do feel like it's a somewhat shorter game compared to a long game like Arc Nova. I would need to play it some more to see if it feels like more like an Arc Nova or even like a Wingspan, which, in my opinion, does play a little bit longer than what it probably should. But uh, the solo mode feels perfectly fine. I think I can get a game done in about an hour or so, give or take a couple of minutes, depending on how long I think about my turns. But ultimately, I to me, this game has a lot of the right mechanisms that I look for in a game. It has all of the different cards. The worker placement is very interesting. It visually looks great as well. But I wasn't tremendously blown over by it. I think, like games like Wingspan, I feel like this inches closer to that kind of experience that I get from Wingspan, which is a comforting and cozy experience, but one that just not quite, fit the complexity or depth of strategy that I get from games like Ark Nova and Terraforming Mars. And one thing too that I think about is that in addition to the luck of the draw of the different cards, whereas you're often just searching for icons to gather to achieve your objectives, there are a few cards in the deck that offer some interesting alternative ways to score points, which is something that I really enjoy from games like Terraforming Mars and even Agricola as well. Some of those cards offer you a completely different avenue by which to play the game, which I think is really fun and amazing. And there were some like in my Automa play against the hardest one. I did this turn where I played these two different creatures. One that allowed me to flip over eggs to get points, and then I had another one that said whenever you flip over an egg, you get points as well. And so I was able to get like 15 points just from playing those two cards. And so I really liked that, but I think I wanted more of that out of the cards. A lot of the cards have like the same kind of effect, but with just different icons and a different name. And so the deck is kind of falsely stacked with a lot more cards that maybe it should have. Maybe if all the cards had completely different abilities and a little bit more drastic in what they could do, I think that would make me pretty happy. And don't get me wrong, there are plenty of cards that do different things, right? Like the one-off cards, the ones that activate when you recall workers. So there are many different types of cards, but what they do, for the most part, were pretty simple. And so I think a little bit more complexity in what the cards could do, yeah, would definitely elevate the experience for me strategically. But all in all, it's providing that kind of experience that I've come to really enjoy, and therefore it does get a solid 8 out of 10 for me. And I would definitely play this again and look forward to doing so with friends. So what are your thoughts on Wondrous Creatures? What do you think of this game? Let me know in the comments if you've played it and if you enjoy it or not. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you schedule an appointment with me real soon. Take care.